Today I will be presenting on cuttlefish. Starting with their biology/natural history. This is just a diagram of their external anatomy, and you can see they have the mantle followed by the head and then the tentacles surrounding the beak. They look very similar to other cephalopods, but they also have the fins that extend all along the entire mantle. And so this is just what they look like externally. So as you could see, they had an oval and flattened shaped body, and they had those long and narrow fins that went all the way around the mantle, followed by 8 arms surrounding the mouth. The defining characteristic of cuttlefish is their cuttle bone, and it's this internal shell that helps with swimming and buoyancy. And so how it helps with buoyancy is they can actually change their density using the cuttle bone, and they do this with the help of the fins and mantle. And then they have 2 methods of swimming. The first is jet propulsion, which is used, that's how the cuttle bone helps with swimming. They use it by sucking water into their body cavity using the cuttle bone and then expelling it through their siphon. And this propels them backwards and is used for escaping predators. And they typically reserve it just for escaping predators because it does require a lot of energy to do. And so they typically like to reserve that for when they actually need it. And they also have hovering and normal swimming, which is achieved using their fins when they move them in gentle wave-like motions. It kind of keeps them swimming and just moves them forwards. For their skin and coloration, they have 3 layers of skin that contain pigment sacs. And the first layer on the surface contains chromatophores. And these are pigment sacs that are filled with red, yellow, or brown pigment. And how this layer works is the chromatophores absorb various wavelengths of light, and then these wavelengths that they've absorbed are then processed as visual input and sent to a nerve fiber. This nerve fiber is connected to a muscle, and the muscle contracts, which causes the chromatophore sac to open and color to appear on the skin. And when it relaxes, the chromatophore sac closes and color disappears. Then you have the leucophores making up the innermost layer of skin, and these reflect ambient light and help with camouflage. And how it does that is the ambient light that it reflects kind of gives the cuttlefish a good base color that helps them blend in with their surroundings. And the iridophores make up a reflective layer of skin that's in between the previous 2, and this is where they get their colors. They reflect light and create pink, yellow, green, blue, or silver coloration. And with these 3 layers, they can display patterns that are very impressive and can even be mesmerizing. And they use these patterns for different things depending on their age. The usage changes. The young use it mostly for camouflage and protection, whereas the adults use it for courtship displays, camouflage, and hypnotizing prey, and just general communication. So for their life cycle, it starts with mating, and how they mate is through sexual reproduction. Then the female lays hundreds of eggs, and this is a multiple day process. The eggs then develop over the span of around 2 months, and the offspring hatch basically as smaller versions of the adults. And then they undergo a growth period, and then eventually they reach sexual maturity in adulthood after about 18 to 22 months. Females die very shortly, within the span of a few days after laying eggs, and the males follow by dying a few months after mating. And so what this means is they really only mate once in their lives, and they have a very short lifespan. It's only 1 to 2 years. Moving on to their geography and abiotic factors. Their distribution, they're found in coastal waters near Asia, Europe, Africa, and Australia. And they're also found in the Mediterranean Sea and the Baltic Sea. Most species are found in shallow temperate and tropical waters. However, some species have been known to live as deep as 2,000 meters. They can be found in a variety of habitats, including seagrass beds, rocky outcrops, sandy substrate, and coral reefs. And what type of habitat they are found in really depends on the species. They have different preferences depending on they have different preferences for depth, sea floor morphology, chlorophyll A concentration, sea surface temperatures, and surface salinity. So these are just the different factors that affect where each species is found. For their ecology, they use their camouflage to hide from predators and to blend in to their surroundings, as well as the jet propulsion to get away. And how they catch prey is they use camouflage to either sneak up on their prey or hypnotic displays using their skin, so they can actually hypnotize their prey and kind of disarm it enough where they can then catch it. And how they catch it is by shooting out their tentacles, and they do this very quick. It's almost split-second speed. And they eat crustaceans such as crabs and shrimp, as well as small fish. And their predators include larger fish and some mammals like dolphins and seals. For my proposal, I think that female patterns during mating would be an interesting topic to observe. And my question would be if there are certain displays that make females more attractive to males. And my hypothesis is that certain colors and patterns will make a female cuttlefish attract more males during the mating process than others. And this study would be an observational study that would best be performed in a lab setting. The materials would include cameras, cuttlefish, tanks that resemble the natural habitat of cuttlefish, and their natural mating habitats as naturally as possible, as well as a method of cuttlefish identification, which I would use multiple observers, each being assigned a female cuttlefish to follow. And I would use this method because there's not really many previous cases of successful tagging techniques. It's kind of hard to tag cephalopods, and I think this would also be easier to observe them if each observer had a single cuttlefish. And so how I would do this would be I would assign each observer a camera and a female cuttlefish to observe, and I would have them record any display of the female cuttlefish, so any type of coloration change or pattern change, and any interaction with males that follow that display for the duration of the mating period. And I would consider the mating period over once the females have laid their eggs. And after that, we could then go back and rewatch the footage. And in doing so, we could record the different displays that the females put on. And we'd be looking at what colors there are, the duration of the displays, the general pattern, if they're using like spots or stripes or anything like that, and if changing texture or changing like the appearance of their texture was involved. I would then record the number of males that showed interest in females after a display. And I would consider showing interest to include hovering around the female as she's putting on the display, the male then putting on his own display to impress the female, fighting with other males over the female, attempting to mate with the female, as well as successful mating with the female. So typical male mating behaviors. And then from that information, from looking at which displays the females put on and how many males each one attracted, I would then note which of those displays had more male attraction. An example of what the data would look like, I'd have like the female ID, some way to identify which female it was, and I'd probably use the observer ID, whether it's a number or a letter. And then we'd have the duration of the display, as well as what colors were seen during the display and the general pattern. So the example I used here was flashing, where they either changed colors all at once or stripes moving down the mantle. And if there was a change in skin texture, or if they changed the colors of their skin to look like a change in skin texture, as well as the number of males that showed interest in that particular female's display, and the interest behavior type. And I think that would be kind of a good way, just as an observational study, to see if there are any trends in which patterns in which displays do attract more males, and if there is a preference for certain displays over others. And these are my references, followed by my questions. Thank you.